Okay, today I'm genuinely excited. This is the lesson that I've been most looking forward to. I'm going to show you what has been the most important technique in my drumming life. When I was shown this at 11 years old, it was like some ancient kung fu secret, like a lost treasure or the holy grail of drumming. It seemed to take me months to learn. And in the same way that this technique is a way of controlling the pivot of a stick, it marked a pivotal achievement. It was the difference between someone who held a piece of wood and hit things and someone who had skill, someone who could demonstrate to what the uninitiated layperson was magic. I was that layperson at 11 years old when my drumming guru master, Mr. Houghton, demonstrated it to us. And like the quest for the lost gold of El Dorado, I would stop at nothing till I'd mastered it. It's called the finger double stroke, and it's basically a way of producing two fast beats with your fingers with one wrist movement. I went on to show this technique to my children about 20 years after I'd learnt it. They were about 6 or 8 years old and they picked it up in 20 minutes. And that just reinforces the old saying that what's one man's treasure is another man's rubbish. Anyway, I hope this technique is as useful in your drumming as it has been in mine. The finger double stroke. Okay, so here we have the double stroke, the finger double stroke. Now I like to separate this into two different parts, and I think it's important that you really try and be patient with this and try and learn these two parts separately before you try and put them together and go fast. So basically we're looking at a drop and snap technique. So we're dropping the stick. That's the first movement. Now what happens is the stick hits the drum and the natural rebound pushes the beater up. At the same time we want to allow that to move as fast as possible, so we flick our fingers down, but our fingers don't leave the stick. They must stay in contact with the stick at all times. So I'll just do that again. It's a common misconception, if you like, to go and throw your fingers away from the stick. And we don't want to throw our fingers away from the stick. We want to allow our fingers to follow the stick, but don't inhibit the stick. So it's a balance between flicking the fingers and flicking the fingers at the right speed to match the speed of the stick. So this takes a while to develop. Now, the opposite to flicking the fingers away from the stick is not flicking them away fast enough. And if we do that, the stick doesn't pivot. The stick doesn't flick up naturally as far as it can, and it ruins the whole technique. So this is the first half of the finger double stroke. So it's really important that the fingers stay in contact with the stick and the stick pivots up naturally to its fullest extent that it can, related to the amount of energy that you put into that first strike. So down, down. And we end up in this position with the thumb as slightly moved away from the hand, from the finger, and leaving the slight gap, and we're holding the stick between the thumb and the index finger, kind of near the first joint of the index finger, but not parallel to it. Not parallel to it, but we're at an angle to it, so it's like a 45-degree angle almost. And then we're holding it also with the middle finger and the ring finger, and the little finger is just kind of touching the side of the stick. So that's the first movement, down, down. Okay? Hopefully you've got that. We'll do it from a different angle, down, down. And from this angle, down, down. Okay, and it's the same on the other hand. Down. Down. That was a bit rubbish. Sorry, I'll do that again. Down. And from this side, although I don't know whether you'll see it from this side, down. Again, that was rubbish. It's my left hand. Down. Down. Okay, so that's the first half of the finger double stroke. Now then, the second half. So we've ended in this position at the end of the first half of the double stroke. So now this is where, that was the drop part, and now we get the snap part. So what we want to do is snap these fingers back so that, not like that, so that when we snap it back, the stick hits the drum. So we'll just try that again. We've got the stick at a sort of a 45-degree angle. Obviously we need the stick low enough so that it hits the drum. And then we snap it back. Snap. Snap. So, snap. And from the front, snap. From the other side, snap. And the left hand from the front, snap. From the side, snap. From the other side, snap. Okay, so that's the second part of the finger double stroke. Now then, it makes more sense, this finger double stroke, when we put it together. But until we've mastered the two halves, it's really not worth trying. It's if we try, we run the risk of wasting a lot of time, which is why this took me so long to learn, because my coach, Mr. Houghton, showed it to us, but he only used to come down every few months. So he showed it to us, and then I went away home and practiced it with no guidance and wasted a tremendous amount of time. That's why it seems so difficult. But if you take the time to practice these two movements separately, individually, then hopefully you won't waste as much time as I did. But once we've mastered those two movements, i.e. we've got the down and the fingers are staying in contact and the snap, and we're back into the original hand position. And once we've mastered those two separate movements, we then try and put them together. So we've got down, snap, down, snap. So from the front, down, snap, down, snap. And from the other side, down, snap, down, snap. And then the left hand, down, snap, down, snap. From the side, down, snap, down, snap. From the other side, down, snap, down, snap. Of course, this is all very unnatural. So I felt a lot of tension then in my arm. Obviously we don't want tension, but there's a lot to think about here. So there may be some tension, which is because it's kind of unnatural. It's an unnatural thing. This technique works much better at speed, but we can't play it at speed until we've mastered it very, very slowly. Otherwise it just becomes a mess and it becomes uncontrolled. So it's going to feel unnatural until we've managed to master those separate techniques and master them together, and then we can start to relax and build up the tempo. So eventually we're looking for something like this. We've got one down wrist movement, and the fingers help to produce a second. The fingers opening on that downbeat is the start of this technique, and the fingers snapping shut is what finishes the technique. Okay, so that is the finger double stroke. Okay.